Hello, everybody. Nick Tiro, Professor of Information Technology, Computer Science, Lakeland Community College. All right, I kind of have to do this video, but it's going to be a little silly, and maybe I'm just going to make it a little sillier. This is almost kind of a trip down memory lane, but I'm going to show you some particular hardware or storage devices. I know the textbook goes quite into some extensive information concerning storage devices and controller types and things like that. And I could basically sum up the textbook. It's an outstanding chapter if you find that stuff interesting, but I could probably sum it up on the forensic side. You're going to come across technology that could be dated, could be old, it could be archival, it could be in somebody's basement or something like that, and you're required to maybe recover it or do some forensics analysis on it. And when those days come, you have to have the equipment to do it. Now, most of the equipment that we deal with nowadays is USB and USB SCSIs and things like that. Where the older equipment, we had different cards in there, different pin configurations. They talk about IDE versus SCSI and stuff like that. And all I got to say is, it's interesting. You don't have to have that equipment, but if you're ever working on a forensics investigation, the forensics lab better have the equipment that will allow you to look at or create an image on that things. Let's take a trip down memory lane real quickly. I actually have a bunch of stuff on my desk right now, but the giant old magnetic hard drives from 50 years ago, you're probably not going to see. The stuff you may see slightly would be things like floppy disk, IDE drive, SCSI drive, some older technology like that. Real quickly, and I do mean quickly. Let's go up to my screen to take, because I threw away tons of this stuff. I shredded this stuff. These are some of the old floppy drives. This was the 3.5-inch floppy disk. This is the 5.25, and this was the old 8-inch floppy disk. The only reason I show the old 8-inch floppy disk is if you ever watch, I think it was a 1983 movie, War Games, one of my favorite movies of all times. Matthew Broderick's computer in his bedroom has, I think it has 2 of these 8-inch disks. They're huge. I've never had to use them. I never used them. When I came into working with computers, they were all this 5.25-inch floppy, and then it quickly flipped over to this 3.5-inch floppy. A little past history about floppies real quickly. This 3.5-inch floppy, that was actually designed with a hard case that you can lock, but it was really designed to fit in the pocket of a man's shirt, of a man's dress shirt. That was the overall design goal for that. So it was kind of, I know it's sexist, but it's true. They designed it to fit into a man's dress shirt pocket. These old 5.25-inch floppies, you notice the little notch right there. That was the read-write notch. There was actually 2 types of 5.25-inch floppies. One was a single-sided, the other was double-sided. And basically, I think there were 180K of storage on one side. So if you had a double-sided one, you would have 360. My original PC at my house when I was 19 years old was only a one-sided floppy. So what I did was I actually had a scissor and I would cut a notch on the other side and I would just flip the floppy over and put it in upside down, and I was able to get my 360. Crazy things, silly things we used to do. The chances of coming across a floppy, it may occur, may not occur. I thought I had one here. Hold on. Yes, I do. I don't know why I have it. I guess memory or something like that. Probably the stuff you're really going to see more. One more thing I'll show you. This was an internal. This is not a floppy. Let me change that again. Keep forgetting. I think this might be of one of 3 or 4 floppies I still have in my house. Right. Quick story about floppies in Lakeland. We used to sell floppies in the 1000, 1005 course for students to store. I went and I bought a box of about 500 floppies. And when I moved from my office, I found the box and I probably had 475 left over, and I just took the whole box, threw it away. Not even open, just threw it away. All right. Trip down memory lane. This is an IDE hard drive. There's the pin set. This particular hard drive is 850 megabytes. And the only reason I kept this, when I moved from one house to another, I took all my old hard drives that were, measured in megabytes, and I drilled holes, and I literally took a power drill and just drilled holes in it, with the exception of this one. This one holds my dissertation from 2005, so this is 18 years old. Hasn't been touched in 18 years. I put it in this thing called an anti-static bag. This is not a Faraday bag. This is just an anti-static bag to prevent static electricity from touching and maybe ruining the components, because there's a lot of exposed components on this. All right, that was a trip down memory lane. Most of the hardware you would work with, obviously read the chapter concerning hard drives and SCSIs and IDEs and all the other stuff. But bear in mind, what they're really talking about is, if you're working with old SCSI drive, you got to have a SCSI controller. If you're dealing with an old IDE drive, you got to have an IDE controller. If you're dealing with whatever, you have to have the particular controller. The technology you'll tend to work with, and I'll cover these real fast because you see me using them all the time. Thumb drives. This one's 128 megabytes. It's probably about 7 years old. This is 1 gigabyte. This is 32 gigabytes. Now, to compare it, that box of floppies that I threw away couldn't even come close to this. It's probably boxes and boxes of floppies. You do the math. Divide 32 gigabytes, divide that by 1.44 megabytes. I'm not even going to attempt the math, right? Let my wife do that. Technology you might see. Sorry about this. There's another type of hardware storage that you will probably see. This is an old SD card. This is a newer SD card. Now, this has an adapter. I actually have the micro SD card. The first SD card I showed you was 16 gigabytes. This micro is 64 gigabytes, so things are getting smaller and smaller. I have to use, sometimes if the device doesn't have a micro SD slot, I have to use an adapter. That's what this particular thing is. We have a portable drive that gets power from USB, as a USB drive. This particular drive, I want to say, is a little bit under a terabyte. It's a little bit old. It's under a terabyte. The drive I use for external storage that I can't unplug right now, it's running on my machine, it's 5 terabytes of storage, and I haven't begun to scratch the surface yet, but I'm guessing 2 to 3 years it's going to be filled, and I'm just going to have to get something bigger. All right. We get that. We understand these storage devices, but there's other storage devices that you may come across that you're going to have to extract data from that we don't even think about anymore. Now, this is not a discussion about the Internet of Things. Down the road, other videos, I'll talk about the Internet of Things. Those are devices that connect to a Wi-Fi and communicate through the internet and stuff like that. But I want to talk about just digital gadgets that you'd be surprised have some kind of storage medium in them. For example, this is a little Bluetooth speaker. It's a nice little disposable. Once the battery is done, we dispose it, Bluetooth speaker. You charge it, and then when it's done, it's done. There's storage on here. Now, there's not a lot of storage on here. It's basically some kind of memory storage in here, but it's enough storage that it remembers the Bluetooth pairing. That might be something that would be of interest with some of these Bluetooth devices that you may have to acquire the pairing information. But one thing that was really interesting when it came to storage is not, you don't really think about storage, and it's not an Internet of Things type device. It's this thing right here, all right? This, if I open it up and show it to you guys, give it a second for it to boot up, get the glare off here. This is a wireless microphone setup. There's actually 2 wireless microphones in this, right? There's 2 of them, and there's a receiver associated with it. And what you do with the receiver is you attach it to a camera or some kind of video device. And then you take the transponder, the actual recording, and you clip it here, and you talk. So the camera can be 30, 40, 50 feet away, and it's transmitting a wireless signal back to the transmitter and recording your voice on the camera. All right, I use it quite extensively in my videos when I'm walking around outside. It's simple wiring. However, all right, let's talk about this beast right here. This is a wireless microphone. There is a microphone built into it. I can also put a corded microphone into like a lanyard microphone in here. So I can keep this in my pocket and then run it up my shirt. And sometimes you'll see me in videos, outdoor videos, and I'll have a microphone clipped to my lapel. However, they don't say that this has storage in it. They don't say, oh, this has 6 gigabytes of storage in it. What they say is you can use this without attaching it to a camera, and it will store up to 14 hours of audio files. Well, the moment you hear something like you can store up to 14 hours of something, again, this is not an Internet of Things. This is just a remote microphone setup, right? It's not connected to the internet. But this particular thing here is a microphone that will send a wireless signal to here. But I don't even have to use this if I don't want to. I can just put this down and sorry, I hit the wrong button. I can store up to 14 hours of audio on this device. Well, obviously that's a storage device. So give me a second here. Let me lean back and not fall down. Hold on one second. Let me get drum roll, please. It has a USB port. I'm going to plug in wrong USB cable. I'm going to plug in the USB cable, and I'm going to plug the other side of the USB cable into my USB hub. Sorry about that pop. Give it a second. Let my computer, what do you call it? Let my computer plug and play. And let me look at my computer here. Lo and behold, it is treating that device as a USB drive, right? It doesn't care. The forensics doesn't care that this is really a wireless microphone. What it sees is USB storage inside this computer. Now, let me just make this just a little bit bigger. I should have did this before the start, but sometimes I forget. There we go. A little bit nicer to look at. So what you're looking at, USB drive, is really the microphone with folders and all this other wonderful stuff. And there is a bunch of WAV files. So what it's intended for is, let's say you set up a microphone on your camera, but you get too far away, or you get some kind of interference between the mic and the receiver. It's still recording your voice as you're talking. So what you can do is you can say, I'm going to ignore the audio that it thinks it's capturing, and I'm going to use the audio that I know it's capturing. So that's the selling point of this particular technology. But it's really a USB drive. So if I'm doing a forensics analysis on somebody who has this particular technology, I'm just going to treat it as a USB drive. I could image it. Of course I would image it, because we don't want to work on the original piece of evidence. Now, the reason I bring this up, the reason I kind of get a little excited about this is, first of all, this chapter is not that exciting, right? The chapter about storage and stuff like that, I'm sorry, it's just not that exciting. But to me, what is now exciting is we got to worry about this stuff. We got to worry about stuff that is recording my voice and digitally recording my voice intentionally that I can collect for evidence. I got to worry about this stuff. Now, these are not Internet of Things. That's a different topic altogether. There's storage on this. If I go through half a dozen items on my desk, there's built-in storage into those devices. Now, a lot of devices are doing this. You know, this is one of the original, I think it was a GoPro 5. It belonged to my sister or something like that. This has a micro SD card, so it doesn't have built-in storage. But the other stuff I'm kind of looking at on my desk has built-in storage. So we have to have the technology to do it. Will you run across a situation where they're going to tell you to extract information from a floppy disk? Yeah, that's potential, right? One of the issues with dealing with old floppy drives is they were very sensitive to climate type things. So even if you have access to some old floppies and stuff like that, the data may be unrecoverable because maybe through the heat and cold, the technology, the dampness, things like that, the humidity, something could have destroyed this. So yeah, is it a possibility that you may? Yeah. Will it be a possibility that you may have to do forensics on some kind of device that has storage? Absolutely. Need to know for historical references. Need to know because this is a technology that we're dealing with. All right. I hope that was a little bit better than reading the book and looking at the hard drives and stuff like that. So a lot of things we have to look at, a lot of storage capabilities out there. And obviously, with that being said, let's go learn something.